First, I'm Jenna Wolf. That is the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. We got some big stories from big personalities out of the NFL last night. We're going to spend plenty of time on Odell, but we are going to jump right into the show with the L. Bell news that broke while most of you were sleeping. Le'Veon Bell is headed to the New York Jets. 4 years, $52 million deal. 35 of those dollars are guaranteed. He will now make less per year, a little over $13 million, than he was slated to make under the Steelers franchise tag last year, and less than other offers the Steelers had previously made him. But Le'Veon Bell has got a new chapter to start now. Put this on Instagram. Let's go, he said. Life's a gamble. Making reference to his new mixtape, just came out, Catchy Tunes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Is it a
Yeah,
mixtape or an album?
It was probably an album, but I played my cassette player when...
I don't know what it was. I didn't know any of it. Jenna, you gave me information. Whether it was mixtape, album,
very good music that
limited EP, whatever it was. I didn't know that was the name of it.
All that being said, CC, we'll start with you. We'll put the album and the mixtape aside. What was your reaction to this deal?
I'm happy for him. Happy that it was able to get done. You're talking about a team as we approach free agency, the New York Football Jets. They had more money available at that time than anyone. And as you go through this and they start signing players, you went, man, are they going to get some offensive help for Sam Darnold? And I like the way, first they started on the defense, able to get them some defensive help. But I like the fact that they have one of the best all-purpose running backs in football in Le'Veon Bell. His ability to be able to affect the game as a running back out of the backfield, as a premier pass catcher. That's the difference between him and the other running backs. You talk about Todd Gurley. Man, Todd Gurley, he's the best back in the NFL. Ezekiel Elliott, he might be the best pure runner, but the best combination running back is Le'Veon Bell, and he happens to play for the Jets, and it is a huge insurance policy that you're going to get the best out of Sam Darnold. So I'm glad they're able to help out the young quarterback to be able to give him a chance. I believe this team is being built the right way, nice and slow. So I like the pieces that they've added. They still can add a couple more pieces. Still offensive line, there's some question marks, but they're off to a great start. Getting the prize possession in free agency this year was Le'Veon Bell, and the Jets got him signed.
And I know a ton of the discussion is going to be the money and the money he didn't pick up last year, and we'll get to that. But on your point about helping out Sam Darnold, of the free agent wide receivers available, was Le'Veon Bell the best one? Now, I understand he's a running back, but if you look at the guys who are available as pass catchers in free agency, was Le'Veon Bell the best guy to help Sam Darnold in that regard as well? Because I know the Jets signed Jamison Crowder, but we talked about it when the Cowboys traded for Amari Cooper. Remember, we looked at the 2019 NFL free agent. Listen, wide receiver was not deep. If they
receivers on the outside, they tendered our boy Robbie Anderson. So
they have Quincy Enunwa. They signed Jamison Crowder.
Quincy outside. Crowder's going to play the slot. But what L. Bell does, he not only helps out the quarterback, but he helps out that offensive line. So he might be the best pass catching receiver available. That's up for someone else to debate. But what he can do helps out that offensive line, and it helps out Sam Darnold.
So the Jets, they traded for Osemele, the offensive guard from the Oakland Raiders, was on the tail end of a very expensive contract. We mentioned that they signed Jamison Crowder. They upgraded the defense with C.J. Mosley. They thought they were getting Anthony Barr. He ended up going, obviously, back to the Vikings. But this is the process, and the process has to be give Darnold some help. At the end of last year, Darnold, the last quarter of the season, played well. His passer rating jumped up 20-plus points. He only had one interception the final 4 weeks of the year. You were starting to see, okay, he's coming into his own after that foot injury. And so you now have a real difference maker on defense, or on offense, that defenses have to account for. And for Le'Veon on the money side of things, this is the most guaranteed money any running back has ever gotten, and he becomes, on an annual basis, the second highest paid running back in the league, just behind Todd Gurley. So even if it's shy of the 16 to 17 million per year that reportedly he had been looking for each of the last two off seasons, the 35 million guaranteed was right around the number both you and I said yesterday we thought his contract would end at, even if the annual value was higher. So maybe a little disappointment that he didn't get to 65 million, had to settle for around 53 million. But the guaranteed money is what was key. It's what the Steelers were not offering. And and he got $35 million from the Jets.
Do you think L. Bell thought he would fetch more on the open market than he did?
Yeah, absolutely. Last night, talking to some people, the market wasn't there for him. Either from they were not going to make him a wide receiver, because that was one of the things he wanted, why he didn't want the franchise tag. He said, I'm more than a running back, trying to reset the running back market. But he wasn't able to do that because teams didn't agree with him, and there's some other things teams didn't like. They didn't like the fact that he didn't play last year, didn't like the fact that he's been in the drug program, could be suspended. So there were a number of things that kept his annual salary out of being $17 million, $16 million, which a lot of people thought, because there were so many teams that had dollars available, it was some of the other stuff that prevented him from being able to fetch that big number.
When you see that this is what it took to get him, are you surprised the Colts didn't match this offer?
No, because if you read everything that the Colts have been saying, they don't want to sign high-priced guys. They looked at last year's free agency, and people who judged last year's free agency, people wouldn't know this, but they would say, man, the Colts were one of the best teams. They got a couple starters, Eric Ebron. They got some secondary help. Both of these guys were frontline players for them. Ebron played to a Pro Bowl level. They had said they want to do it nice and slow. They want to build it the right way. So even though you might think Indy's a good fit, I mean, you have to read the tea leaves. When they're saying they're going to build it nice and slow, they're not going to make that type of investment. So for me, I wasn't as high on Indy as I was on San Francisco and the Jets. Those are the two teams at the end of the day, not Baltimore. San Francisco 49ers, they made a bid for him. It wasn't as high, but the Jets were the biggest offer. So it wasn't like he took some type of discount.
No.
He went to the highest bidder.
And he was always going to go to the highest bidder. I thought maybe the Colts or the Texans could have involved themselves in that high bidding. On the Colts point, we saw with the deal they just gave Devin Funchess, where I think a lot of people think, wow, 1 year, $10 to $13 million for Funchess. The 1 year is the key there. The Colts clearly have the philosophy of, we are not going to give huge dollar multi-year deals. And so this would have, I guess, fallen in that category.
Well, they haven't found a player that they're going to give that deal to.
Correct, right. They're not going to rush to give that deal. So when you give Funchess a 1 year deal, what you're essentially doing is rolling that cap space over to next year.
And you don't mess up your salary cap. You don't get T.Y. Hilton coming back asking for more money, because if you pay him a lot more money than you're paying T.Y. Hilton, they don't have nearly the same resume. So they're making sure that they don't set a bad precedent for the team.
But the appetite for him wasn't where we all thought it was. He didn't get an offer from the Texans. The Ravens didn't make an offer. The Colts were clearly out of it. The Niners weren't really there at the end when they saw what the Jets were going to offer. Does that surprise you at all, that at the end, for a guy that's 27 years old and seemingly has a year of rest and has a whole future ahead of him?
Well, I think the year of rest clearly worked against him. And this is something Chris talked about a lot when he was taking the time off.
Football players play football. Basketball players, they hoop. We haven't seen people start taking time off, and we saw that enhance their career. So we got all these years of experience to think that he was going to be the one. The NFL looked at it and said, no, we don't think he's going to.
The people that run football teams clearly share that philosophy with Chris much more than what I was saying, which was, I totally understood what Le'Veon Bell did last year. I totally understood the idea of not wanting to go back to a team where you'd been the most used running back on a per-game basis in NFL history, where you had no guarantee money after this season, where you could potentially be used as a rental car because they knew you weren't coming back, because you thought you wanted, and by the way, he was right on the guaranteed money, you had a big guaranteed payday coming next. Now, if he would have known this is the contract offer he gets, would he have played last year? We'll never know the answer to that question. And what would he have gotten if he had played last year? Clearly, his best case scenario would have been play, stay healthy, stay productive, and then go get this contract.
And $14 million.
Of course. That's why it would have been. Now, his worst case scenario would have been play, suffer a significant injury, and only see that $14 million as significant earnings the rest of his career. But when he made the calculation, he and his agent, to not play last year, I think they thought it was going to be more like 5 years, $70 million, and that would compensate for the $14 million lost.
All right, Le'Veon Bell is headed here to New York. He will be a New York Jet, but more news out of New York. Big news. Odell traded to